All right, everyone. Celtic are back later today, back at Celtic Park. If you want a bit of pre-match chat ahead of the Newcastle United game, check out yesterday's video. But today, we're focusing on a new Celtic signing. It's a deal that hasn't yet been officially announced by the club, but this one's happening. Brendan Rodgers has even confirmed that Shin Yamada will be coming in. He'll be our, I think, sixth summer signing. So to find out more about Shin Yamada, we got the man in the know with regards to Japanese football back on, Ryo Nakagawara. Ryo, I've completely sucked up to you again, sucked up to a guest by wearing a Japan shirt. But yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it's nice to talk to you again, Hamish, about Shin Yamada this time. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about this E1 Championship that was on during the week that Japan won. I think Yamada played in one of the three matches, but it was only players based in Japan that were playing in it.
Yeah, pretty much. It's the East Asian Championship, basically. It's called. It's been a bit of an awkward tournament for Japan and Korea, right? Because it's mostly a domestic-based squad for them, for both nations. Whereas China and whoever the extra country that wins the playoffs, this time was Hong Kong, they bring their full, A-team squad usually. So it's always kind of a way for the Japan manager, at least in the past 10 or 15 years, now that more of the full Japan national squad all play in Europe. It's a way for the more like the domestic stars to, stake a claim, maybe get themselves in the shopping window for European clubs looking at them, in a different context, right? Because the national team, especially against different other countries, it's a different challenge for these players that they not many are able to get unless they're already playing in the Asian Champions League, like Shin Yamada. He's already done that. So, but yeah, it's interesting though, because from the reporting that I've heard, Shin Yamada's transfer was actually finalized before the tournament happened. And but unlike another player who actually left the squad before the tournament because he was getting a transfer, Shin Yamada stayed and played. And from what I've heard from him, from various interviews, is that for Shin Yamada, this was really his first actual call up to the national team in any form, right? So he really wanted to get himself in front of Moriyasu, and practice in front of the coaches, the manager, and all that, and try to make trying to look good in front of him. And unfortunately, he only played like 20-30 minutes in one game against Hong Kong. He didn't really do a whole lot, unfortunately. So it wasn't successful in that sense, but nevertheless, he did get experience playing alongside other teammates and getting to interact with Moriyasu and the other national team coaching staff. So yeah,
good. So just briefly, in terms of like the full Japan squad, in terms of like the World Cup next year, for example, where roughly would Yamada be ranked in terms of the strikers that Japan have?
Yeah, I don't think Shin Yamada is anywhere near the squad when everyone is called up. So like even someone like Kyogo has been having a really hard time, getting called up to the squad over the past few years, despite his goal scoring exploits for Celtic. So it really shows the kind of the competition that both Kyogo and now Shin Yamada has, despite going to play for Celtic, being able to play Champions League football against good opponents as well, right? And it's also a lot of it is also because of that the playing style that Moriyasu wants from his strikers. I know a lot of people. I know a lot of Celtic fans have complained about how Daisen Maeda is getting chosen ahead of Kyogo and all that, but it's really more about like what certain strikers bring to the national team that others don't have. And yeah, so in that sense, back to Yamada. Sorry, I'm kind of getting off track here, but yeah, like Yamada is quite a bit far behind in the pecking order as things stand, especially when you compare it to all the other strikers already playing in Europe right now. In terms of like the strikers, like if you only consider J League, then yes, I think Yamada is one of the top ones. Though this season he hasn't been that great, but I think we'll get to that later. But yeah,
I think if there's one thing that Celtic fans understand, it's that Japan have a lot of attacking options. I mean, Kyogo. There's talk that Kyogo was the best striker we've had in the last 20 years, and as you say, he couldn't really play, or he didn't play that often for Japan. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked as well. So let's talk about Yamada. You, in your too long didn't read summary, and by the way, sorry, at this point I should direct people to your brilliant scouting report on Shin Yamada and so many other Japanese players playing in the J League that you think could move to Europe. It's Shogun Soccer, your website, and yeah, people just have to check this out. And I'll link the Yamada article at the top of the description. There's so many interesting thoughts from you on his style of play, and also about 30 minutes of footage of Yamada playing, which is really useful. So watch this video, everyone, but then after that, you have to check out this article. So yeah, your too long didn't read summary. You say Yamada is a natural finisher with all parts of his body, using excellent movement in and out of the box. He lacks creative passing ability and difficulties in defensive efforts, with some recent improvements this current season. So that gives people an idea. So tell us a little bit about what kind of player Shin Yamada is.
Right. So Shin Yamada is really a penalty box striker. Like he does, most of his work inside the box. Really good finisher, right? And the thing that's really interesting about him is that, he can finish with any part of his body. Like last season, he scored 6 with his left foot, 4 with his right foot, plus 2 there are penalties, but that's a bit different, and then 7 with headers, right? So he can pretty much any different body part, any kind of location in and around the box. Yeah, he can really finish. Unfortunately, this season he has been a bit off the boil in that sense. He's still been able to get on the end of chances, but he just hasn't really been able to finish like he did last season. Which I think is probably the biggest concern I know for Celtic fans who's, just kind of looked at Wikipedia or whatever other football site and checked the stats and all that. But, like the thing about him is it's all about his movement in and around the box. He's very clever, and he's also very quick, like accelerating, and that gives him a head start ahead of defenders. Whether that's outside the box or inside the box, and like he's like constantly trying and repositioning. Like if a cross, it's not accurate, it goes over to the other side, and one of his teammates is going over to grab the ball. Then Shin Yamada isn't just standing there. He's moving again, repositioning himself, checking where the defenders are, where the spaces in the boxes. And, he's always trying to get on the blind side of the defenders, really and he really makes it hard for opponent defenders to keep an eye on him and the ball at the same time. And that's really one of his strengths. And that's also why he's able to score so many goals from headers, right?
Yeah.
Because, as you noticed, he's not quite a tall guy, and he's quite short for a striker, but he's really good at heading the ball. Like his technique is fantastic. He has a good leap, but most importantly of all, like he's able to get and score these headers because of his movement. Right. And it's and he if when you watch him play, he's not like winning these headers when he's going up against and dueling opposition center backs in 1v1. It's mostly because he's dropped off or quickly snuck behind someone, and then his teammates are really good crossers of the ball, so they are able to give him perfect service right on top of his head, and he scores a goal like that. So yeah, those are really the yeah. So like that's the interesting thing about it. Like that's what makes him special, I think. Yeah, like his ability to score in all different kinds of situations. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand completely what you're saying. And anyone who watches the clips will see that he manages to find space in packed boxes. Yeah, a lot of headers. He scores a lot of scrappy goals as well, like a lot of deflections and maybe not the greatest of goals, but who cares if he's scoring them?
Exactly. Yeah, like he's really quick to react inside the box. So it's not just like the kind of the goals that he creates himself with his movement. It's just that, he has this knack for being in the right place at the right time and just quickly reacting, shifting his body off of deflection to open his body up and, knock it in. Those kind of things. Yeah, it's the kind of stuff that, it's hard to train. It's just kind of instinct. And that's part of why he's such an interesting player. Yeah.
So you describe him as having a stocky build and being really good at using his body.
Yeah, like it's a bit of two things. Like he's quite stocky and he's very tenacious, but nevertheless he's still quite small. And against, I suppose, European level defenders, he'll still have a tough time. Against J1 level defenders, he's usually been able to, be fairly physical and be able to play with his back to goal. But what was noticeable for me was that against the really, really good J1 defenders, where they were like the big kind of Brazilian center backs or the kind of Japanese center backs with European experience who've, come back to the J League and stuff, he's kind of struggled against those type of players.
Okay.
So I think there's definitely going to be a bit of a transition period for him to acclimatize to that. And in any case, like what he's better at is in terms of dropping off the last line into that little pocket of space in between the lines, between the midfield and defenders to, receive the ball and then shield it and then pass it along rather than, receiving the ball while he's already under pressure from the center backs, in a sense, right? There's that really slight nuance, I guess, but yeah, it's nevertheless important. But yeah, in terms of his passing, like you said in the too long to read summary I had of him in the blog post, yeah, like he's not going to be playing through balls or making these crazy kind of defense splitting passes, but he just does the simple stuff real well, just a simple layoff, turns to the side, sprays it to the winger, that kind of stuff. Because yeah, you really want him to be getting touches in the box,
right?
Yeah, as much as possible, because that's where he thrives and that's where he's going to be doing the most danger. So yeah.
Okay, so we've established that he's a penalty box striker, but having watched some clips of him, he also has very good movement outside of the box. So he'll play on the last defender. He looks, dare I say it, similar to Kyogo in terms of his movement. How would he compare to someone like Kyogo in terms of like pace? Is he as quick as Kyogo? Is he stronger than Kyogo? And is he a similar type of player to Kyogo?
Right. So outside the box, like a lot of the runs he makes are kind of, sprinting out wide, getting long balls from either the center backs or the fullback, right? And to kind of help his team kind of regain a bit of territorial advantage, just getting the long ball, relieve, put some pressure off the defense, and try to get the entire team to push their lines up a bit more. And so Shin Yamada is quite good at that. And like similar to Kyogo, he is quite fast, especially in terms of acceleration. Like the first 5 meters or so, he's really, really quick in that sense. And I'm not sure, like it's always quite difficult without data to like really see how exactly he's fast relative to other players.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure about that. But in any case, like, yeah, his acceleration is really quite good. And that's also why he's, it also helps his movement, right? whether it's inside the box or outside, where he's kind of drifting out wide to kind of sell the ball and hold it up a bit and wait for support. So yeah.
So on to the bit that has got Celtic fans talking the most is his goal scoring. And so he's played, I think, 3 seasons as a professional player with Kawasaki Frontale. The first season, you say, was him acclimatising to the professional game. So he didn't play a whole lot, but his goal scoring record was decent enough. His second season was the one where he really did well. So he scored 19 goals that season in the J1 League, and he was the joint top Japanese goal scorer. I think he was 3rd top out of all nationalities. So that was a big season. I think he was scoring a goal every 100 minutes, roughly, on the pitch that season. And then we have this current season where he's scoring a goal every 500 minutes, roughly, on the pitch. And I think he has just 2 J1 League goals this season. So the easy question, or the very difficult question, would be, what the hell happened to him?
Right. So from what I've seen of him, like last season was a bit weird. It was the last season managed by a long-time Kawasaki Frontale manager, Toru Oniki, who I'm sure Celtic fans might be familiar with because he's the guy that was managing Ryo Nakagawara and a couple of other really good Kawasaki Frontale players who've made it over to Europe in the past few seasons. And like he was a manager who's very, very attacking. And unfortunately, due to various reasons, and last year and the season before, I suppose, like the defending was really quite poor. Like it all kind of just fell apart, and Kawasaki Frontale in general just weren't as good as they were when they were at their best. So this led to a lot of games where everything was extremely chaotic, where they would really, be trying to go forward and attack, but then they'll have to defend. But then, they'll win the ball and then they'll go straight back up again. And it really that was like the kind of environment that really suited Shin Yamada, right? Because, he's a very kind of active player that likes, that kind of chaos, especially in the box, right? Because like I've talked about, he's really good at reacting and, getting onto those rebounds and all that kind of stuff. So that's partially why I think he was really successful last season. This season, Frontale, they got themselves a completely different manager, and he plays a very different style of football, of a bit more defensive, not supremely so, because Frontale are still quite a good attacking team. They've still got quite good attacking players that they've kept on from the past seasons, right? But Shin Yamada's kind of responsibilities, especially off the ball in defense, has increased a lot compared to last season, where he wasn't really doing much anyways. It was mostly just given responsibility attack. And that's kind of where he's really struggled, because even last season he wasn't quite good at defending from the front and pressing, or kind of keeping mark on the opposition center midfielders when the opponent center backs were having the ball in the build-up play, that kind of thing. Whereas this manager is very, very kind of strict about that sort of thing. And Yamada's struggles in that sense has really had them, kind of in and out the lineup, which I think has also affected his confidence, and that's kind of tied into his kind of poor finishing this season. And what's interesting, though, for me, which makes me a bit more optimistic compared to a lot of people who can only kind of see his stats in terms of 2 goals this season, is that he's still getting on the end of chances. Okay. His move is still fairly good, but he's just not finishing. So it's a combination of just a bit of a down year for him confidence wise, opposition keepers pulling off good saves, and just some bad luck as well. So I would be much more worried if he wasn't getting on the end of these chances, right? and he wasn't scoring goals. But the thing is, like, he's still getting on the end of chances. He's just not scoring them. So it's a bit of, that's the kind of like bright side view, a bit of an optimist view that I would want to tell Celtic fans in that sense. Yeah.
Okay.
And especially after this EAFF Cup where he struggled to, really make his mark. He's very, very motivated now, right? He's seeing the level that he needs to get at. He struggled this season, whereas he had a really good season, in 2024. So like, he's still working through stuff, but like, that kind of challenge, I think it's a big motivator for him. And now moving to Celtic, it's that's only going to increase because he wants to make this move because he wants to get into the national team and wants to make it to the World Cup and other major tournaments. So like, yeah, I don't think motivation is going to be a factor. He's really going to want to prove himself now for Celtic.
Yeah, very interesting. A lot of chat about him coming to Celtic and whether he's here as a player to be a first team player for Celtic right now, or maybe like Kayato Inamura. He may be one that the club are looking at with a longer term view. Do you think he's a player that's coming in to start for Celtic, or is he one that will have to bide his time?
I would imagine, compared to Inamura, that he is definitely one to be in and around the first team squad immediately. Like, he's already 25. Compared to Inamura, he already has a few seasons already under his belt, despite him, being another one of those players that have come through the university level system, right? And also the fact that, he's played for, unlike Inamura, Shin Yamada has been playing for Kawasaki Frontale, one of the top teams. He's also had plenty of Asian Champions League experience as well on the continent, and and as we've mentioned quite a few times already, he's got his Japan national team cap as well. So like, he is definitely a player that I imagine he should be pushing for a first team spot. I'm not sure who your other strikers. I know Adam Ida is still around.
Yeah,
Daizen Maeda, I assume, unless he leaves, which it might still happen. There's still quite a few.
Don't say that.
Sorry, but yeah, like, he still might go, and he could still play in the striker spot as well, of course. So yeah,
got a couple of young strikers, as Callum Osmond and Johnny Kenny, but neither of them are particularly proven. But there's chat that we might sign another striker as well.
Right, yeah. So it'll be interesting in that sense. But yeah, like, Shin Yamada, definitely he should be someone that should be in and around the first team squad. Yeah.
Anything else? Any other things you want to say about Yamada?
Yeah, like, he's an interesting player for all the different reasons I've talked about, right? And like, I know he's the type of player that can kind of score goals out of nowhere despite not really doing a whole lot across the other game, across the other 89 minutes of the game, right? So it might be a bit frustrating in that sense, but like, yeah, like, given Celtic's dominance, possession wise, throughout the games and all that, like, you should be able to create a lot of chances for him, and he's going to be the type of player that should be able to finish those chances. So like, that's where I see the kind of, the positive in terms of this signing, because he's really, he hasn't been this great, this season so far. Like, he still has that natural instinct. And, given the amount of chances that Celtic should be able to create for him, like, he should be able to succeed, hopefully. Yeah.
Yes, hopefully. Ryo, amazing insight. I feel like I know Shin Yamada much better now after this half an hour. I think everyone else hopefully feels the same as well. So thanks so much, and all the best. We'll maybe chat to you again in the future.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it was a nice talk to you again, Hamish. And hopefully him and Inamura are both a success for Celtic this season.